Oh, welcome to the Collapse Experiment. If you like this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to this channel so you can hear more stories like the one I'm going to tell you now. Well, you never go back to your ex. This is tied into a previous video talking about never go back to an old job, your old town, your ex. You got to move on. You got to leave that shit behind. When they do come around, the exes, it's never for a good reason. Never for a good reason. So, situation I had about 10 years ago. So when I started publishing on Amazon, and I had some books that sold fairly well. Word got around. Somehow, word got out to the masses that I was on there. It's not like I was advertising. It's not like I put up a billboard that was like, hey, buy my stuff. Nope. Somebody, and somehow, my ex-girlfriend from high school. I only dated one girl in high school. That was for 2 years. She was a grade behind me, so it started my senior year, and then I went to college, community college, so I'm still living in town. She had her senior year of high school. Well, when she graduated from high school, two things happened. One, she told me that she wanted to have a baby. You know, I'm in college, right? Like, I'm on this path of doing something, right? Perhaps having a baby is not exactly the best thing. Plus, she had been talking about going to college or trade school or something, right? So she brings that up. And as polite as I could be, I said, I don't really think that's a good idea right now. So, as for some reason the people I date usually do, she disappeared for 2 weeks. Just vanished. Vamonos. There's no cell phones at this time, so it's like I'd call her house and her mom would pick up the phone and say, no, she's not here, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Meanwhile, I had my own phone line in my room with an answering machine. No calls, no messages. She just disappears. And then at the end of that 2 weeks, she miraculously appears and says she thinks it'd be a good idea for us to see other people. So you know what she was doing that 2 weeks. Now, of course, it was high school. I was young, first girlfriend, been together a while, heartbroken. Looking back, this was actually a good thing, because there's one thing that she did that just I never forgot. And that was the time where I had my first ever comic book release, comic book signing. It was a big deal at the shop that I went to. I wasn't really big on sports, although I did track and swimming for 2 years. Did 1 year of swimming and 2 years of track. And but a lot of my time hanging out and my hobbies were primarily comic books. There's this one shop called Discount Hobby on Westnedge. Hell, that was so long ago, the building isn't even there anymore. But the guys who ran the place started something called Kalamazoo Comics. And the first issue kind of went under the radar. Like, ended up being kind of a big deal to the point where Nobody knew it was coming out, but when people learned about it, it sold out. So that was when these guys were like, we should do a second one. And they're looking for more talent. You could have, I think, anywhere between 2 to 3 pages to tell a story. You could submit like comic strips, anything comic related. Like you could submit it and get it in there. So when I learned about this, I went home and I started working on my own 3-page comic and created my own superhero and, defeated the bad guys. And I had 2 other people that I knew. One was a close friend of mine at the time. He got his comic in there. One of his friends got a comic in there. And they even had 92.3 Radio X was there. It was like one of the, for the 90s, it was probably one of the best radio stations in the area. And it broadcast out of Western, and they're playing the good music that you wanted to hear. Not the garbage pop crap. And not the same freaking grunge rock that everybody was... You know how many times Even Flow was probably played on the radio back then? Got a little tired of that crap. So, it was a big deal that night. And, I asked my girlfriend to go. And at first she said yeah. Then she came back later and said, I'd rather just go and hang out with my friends that night, blah, blah, blah. Which kind of told me, like, where I was on the picking line, right? Because her and her friends would get together, hang out, play D&D, which in reality, they were smoking weed and Jello shots. Jello shots still a thing? I don't understand how that works, because last I knew vodka didn't freeze, but whatever. Do they even use vodka? Because that's what they were using. Now I learned a lot of this after the fact, but I was like, hey, this is kind of a big deal for me, and you can hang out with your friends anytime this is a one-time thing. Like, what the hell? Why is this such a big deal? And she would say stuff like, well, I just know I'm going to be bored, and I'm not going to know anybody that's there. And so that was like one of our first issues that we ever had. Not true, but that was the big one. And then finally she tells me that she's going to be there, that her and her friends will stop by. So I'm like, okay. So what happens that night? Well, the signing's going on, everybody's got their own copy, and everybody's signing everybody else's copy of the comic book, and the radio station's there, and people are winning prizes, and then I realize as the time goes on, she hasn't stopped by. And then it gets to about closing time, even though the shop was open late that night, never stopped by. So, what should have been a big night for me, it's all about the people you share it with. So when you accomplish something and the other person that you think cares about you isn't willing to share that thing with you, should you be sharing anything with them at all after that point? So years later, skipping ahead, my books are out and stuff is happening. And this is, I think after my trip to Seattle. So in my head, things are going great. Like there's this weird momentum of success that I'm having, which didn't last. And then it was like, I don't know, I had this weird feeling in my head where I was like, people are going to start coming out of the woodwork for some reason. Like people I hadn't heard from, for some reason, I'm going to hear from them. I just had this weird inkling. And then I get this email. Turns out it was her. She was like, hey, do you remember me? We dated back in high school, blah, blah, blah. And keep in mind, this is 15, 16 years later. And the thing is, I know the guy that she was seeing that 2 weeks that she disappeared is the guy she ended up having a kid with, having 2 kids with. And at this point, with my books being out and all the stuff that's happening with me, her kids are old enough to where they're about to graduate. They're either in high school or they're about to graduate from high school. And I'm like, oh, now you want to upgrade with the guy who wasn't good enough for you back then. It was not cool at all. So I ended up writing back, and I just kept it like really short and simple. And I was like, yeah, that's me. I think I said, glad to see you're doing good. Because I think she talked about like what she was doing or something. But yeah, I know of some people. I have met some people that have actually gone back to their exes. I don't know why. You know, there was one guy in particular, he ran into like some girl that he had known from high school. They had dated back then. Went back to her after his divorce. So wait, you now have an ex-wife and you're going back to your ex-girlfriend from a long time ago who things obviously didn't work out with. And you could tell it was this whole nostalgia thing. It was this guy who was, I think he was like in his 50s. And I think he was just having memories of a time where life was simpler. You know, he was young and youthful. And it was fun. And he's associating all these fun memories with her. And it's like, you think some crazy shit didn't happen with her over the years. So no, I thought about that. It was like, I get this email from my ex, and I'm like, now you want to share the book signing? No. Nope. No. You had that chance. You had the opportunity. You only get one shot. Do not miss your chance to flow. The opportunity came once in a lifetime and you fucking blew it. So yeah, always remember, always keep in mind like why things didn't work out the first time. Because otherwise you end up like those assholes in that eternal sunshine of the spotless mind. It's like, hey, why did we even break up to begin with? I don't know. It's dumb. It's horribly dumb. And people are horribly stupid. People do this dumb shit all the time. But no, I'm one of those people. I have a really good memory of things that happen. And so it's not like somebody can just creep up back into my life And I'm not going to forget that really shitty thing you did that one time or two times or all the time. Like, no, that's not happening. Meanwhile, there's these other people who are like, you gotta forgive and forget. You need to let the past be the past. And I'm like, well, the past is there for a reason. And you should leave that shit there. And perhaps that horrible shit from the past, you don't let into your present. And forgive and forget. Whoever came up with that was definitely a mentally abusive asshole. Seriously. That shit does not work at all. Like, how do you purposely forget something aside from like giving yourself a traumatic brain injury? I never understood that one either. That's not, I don't know if that stuff is in the Bible. It's like the worst verse in the Bible if it is. It's complete bullshit. Does nobody any good whatsoever. You just need to forgive and forget. No. No, no, no. In forgiveness, there's a lot of different definitions of forgiveness. Forgiveness could just be the fact you don't take revenge upon the person who wronged you. That's what that could be. So anyways, looks like my battery is low. So I'm going to have to cut this off here. Keep on typing.